Hi everyone, this is Mark and welcome back to our channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to support us. It really helps. In the previous episode, we laid the insulation under the walls to prevent moisture from soaking up into them. And today, we finally start building the walls. The first and the most important step is the very first row of bricks. They need to be perfectly straight and level, because this is the base for the next 11 rows. If you get this wrong, you will face bigger problems later on. If there is one step you really want to do perfectly, it's this one. For now, I placed 2 bricks at each corner, just dry without any mortar, to figure out the details before gluing them down. We began by checking all the corners of the house to see which one was the highest point. That's where you need to start. For the first layer of bricks, you will need some mortar underneath. The amount of mortar lets you just adjust the height, so you can bring all the corners to the same level. At the highest point, you will only need a thin layer of mortar, while the lower points can be built up with more. This way, everything lines up nicely, and you get a perfectly level base. This is an important step to find the highest point and start from there. Unfortunately, I didn't have a laser level this time and I really wanted one, so I decided to buy one since it will help me through the whole building process. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth it. The only downside was that it was really hard to see the beam outside, on like sunny days especially. Luckily, when I went back to the store, they gave me a pair of red sunglasses, which made a huge difference. Each saw bed blocks has a small interlocking connectors on the ends, little tabs that fit into the next block to help keep them aligned. On the first row at the corners, I shaved those off to create a flat surface so I could run a proper string line. After we run a string between the 4 corners, we check the diagonals. That's why it was all important not to place any bricks in the middle yet, keeping the center clean. It made it so easy to measure everything. There was a lot of back and forth measuring, because every time a brick was moved, we had to recheck all the 4 sides and both diagonals. Like I said, this has to be perfect to avoid future complications, so we took our time. Once all the measurements were set and each corner had its final position, I had to put mortar under the bricks, without even shifting them just a little. At first, I thought, how on earth am I going to do that? So I called my dad for some advice. He suggested drawing around the blocks to mark the edges and then extending those lines. That way, when the mortar is spread, you can still see exactly where the bricks needs to go. With all the corners marked, it was finally time to make some mortar. We thought we had both ready-made mortar, but unfortunately that was glue. A mistake from our part. Luckily, I had all the ingredients on hand: cement, sand, water and lime. A few minutes of mixing later, the mortar was ready. We started the highest corner, which happened to be the closest to the gate. I ended up spending about 30 minutes on that single brick, a crazy amount of time just for one brick, but I needed to get it right before moving forward. With some tips from my dad over the phone, I finally felt confident. I knew this was going to be a roller coaster, but I was ready. The second corner only took 23 minutes. A bit of mortar, some coffee, and plenty of leveling and checking, but in the end, I got it done. I kept checking the laser with my red glasses, though you really can't see it on the camera. Then my neighbor stopped by for a quick chat. I'm always happy when neighbors drop in. whether to say hello or ask for something. It's great to have them around, and it's a good chance for some cooperation. I can honestly say these corners turned out perfect. All the measurements were spot on. At the end, when we checked everything, I was thrilled that I had taken the time to get it right, because the results were flawless. I'm really happy with the outcome. Once the corners were solid and dry, I put up the string line again and started filling in the gaps. The first bricks were more like experiments. I had to figure out the best way to spread the mortar underneath. At first, I just dumped a big lump in without leaving any space in the middle for spread it out, but eventually I got the hang of it. My best advice? Do what I did, watch a bunch of YouTube tutorials, then just dive in and try it yourself. You lay a few bricks, mess up a few, and by the time you finish your first house, well, let's just say you will be a pro, or at least an expert in mortar covered hands. I even had some little helpers from my audience, tiny hands with so much strength that they actually helped move some of the bigger bricks. It was so heartwarming to have my kids involved in this project. And a huge thank you to my wife for looking after them, so I can focus on this project and build our house. Without this little team effort, none of this would have been possible. Thank you so much for following us on this journey. If you have similar dreams and plans, here is a piece of advice. Get up, go for it, and make it happen. Start small, buy a little plot of land, get out there, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. If I can do it, anyone can. I hope to see your smiling faces in 2 weeks. I'll try to bring as many updates as I can. Thanks for watching. Mark is out. Peace.